So today we're going to talk about the future of money. Maybe gold is money, a little bit about digital money, and of course, casinos. It's been a little while since we've talked about gold as money around here. I'm not really sure we've hit that topic directly. Maybe it's been an offhand comment, but I think I've found a good backdrop for that conversation. Or maybe it found me. A while back, Jeremy Corden reached out to see if I was interested in getting a hold of some GoldBacks for the channel, and of course I am. But at the time, I didn't really know what I'd think of them beyond the initial novelty. The idea of using stamped gold as currency triggers something for me for sure, but I don't know about the wide-scale use yet. We're just too far out from that right now. The idea, though, of using these at certain places, maybe certain events, that hits something. So I think I'm probably pretty far off from the intended use, but I can't help but think of markers and chips at a casino, maybe special notes at a hotel. And for you, if none of this is giving you the mental image that I have, maybe you can think of like drink tickets at a wedding. But this is my imagination, so I'm still thinking about Vegas. The reason my mind goes to casino markers and chips is the idea that once you buy in, once you change your money, it has a very specific purpose. You're in it. You're transported outside of the normal money system. And casinos understand this. So do video games. You can ask your kids about V-Bucks if you don't get what I'm talking about. So I think where I'm going with this is that the idea is a little bit ahead of its application. And I think it's hard to not just let your imagination run a little bit here. And part of that, I think, is just the artistry of the GoldBacks. They seem like a currency from a different world. So I've been talking about the adoption issues outside of a small group, but the idea is fun, and there's just no question about how well made these are. Jeremy's team nailed the implementation. I'd say the design is first rate. Now, after having a few conversations here and on Discord, premium seems to be the primary objection, but that isn't the drawback to me. I don't know if this is a fair comparison, but this $50 GoldBack has 1/20th of a troy ounce of gold. It'll cost you $155 or so. Now, this 1/20th ounce gold Year of the Dragon coin will cost you more than that. So it isn't a simple case of outlandish premium to me. It's a case of not really knowing exactly what to do with it since the product is out ahead of its application. Now, if you buy them right now, you are ahead of the use curve. You're an early adopter and probably a very early adopter in my opinion. Now, I think the question of their use gets a bit more complicated when we get into the smaller denominations. I can imagine buying drinks at the swim-up bar in a Mexican resort. I could probably imagine their use at a few places off-strip in Vegas, but this is a family-friendly channel. You have to use your own imagination there. But as for the real world, one-off, small transactions, I'm just not sure. It's important to note here that these don't cost $1. And they aren't valued at $1. The GoldBack website has a calculator meant to help you determine the actual value based on spot price at the time. And that makes the whole concept of using gold as money a little bit more complicated. The idea of a non-fixed floating value is just hard to get people excited about. That extra administration time wouldn't be worth it to let somebody buy a bottle of water, say, with GoldBack, generally speaking. It's just a lot of extra work. Now, I think a current application would require that immersive event, like the casino environment that I mentioned, possibly a multi-day event, maybe a conference, something like SHOT Show, which once again is Vegas. We're starting to see a theme here, but any of those situations, they seem like a more likely application for these right now. And I should probably mention that these are state-based voluntary currencies. So we have Nevada, New Hampshire, and Utah. And I can't really explain how that voluntary part works, but maybe that's a little bit of why I keep thinking about Vegas. Utah would have events like Sundance. You get the idea. So I already mentioned that the GoldBacks on the desk today were given to me by the company. No strings attached. I have purchased some of the higher denominations in the past, but I hadn't really done much with them. And maybe I shouldn't admit this, but I was using one as a bookmark. The rest I gave as gifts shortly after buying them last year, so I haven't put any real deep thought into them prior to this. They've been coming up a little bit over the last few months again, though, and I've thought that to buy them in bulk, I need to see wider adoption or just a general spike in popularity. The introduction of a new state, depending on the state, that might get me to buy some again too, but again, that's about novelty. That's still not enough to get me to buy them in bulk. Now, the company hasn't really positioned them as something that you should buy in bulk. I just get the impression that they want the widest possible audience to give them a shot. Now, none of this has come from any conversations with the company. I haven't really spoken with Jeremy about their plans beyond a few emails. All I'm saying here is based on my own personal impressions, and my general impression is that the actual use case is down the road a little bit. So let's wrap up the current part and then get into a possible future use case. I can see picking these up now and then, even without the imaginary Vegas use cases. They're an easy add-on when I buy something from an online dealer who carries them. I think that they're a very well-made product. The art and design is first rate, overall quality is first rate. But to me, the value would be more about the possibility of being able to do more with them in the future. And that's really not too far off from how most of us treat the other gold that we buy. If you were to pick up a few at a time, $3 here or there, $30 here or there, whatever, eventually you have something more significant, and you likely did it with money that you would never miss. But without a big shift in public acceptance and even just awareness, there's still a novelty right now. Maybe a high premium sleeper asset, depending on how heavy you go. So those are my thoughts on the current environment for these. I'm not going to get into anecdotal retail acceptance at farmers markets that I've seen in some of the other videos. I just don't know how much I care if I can buy some jam at the farmers market with these. I'll be honest, I'm usually in a hurry. I'm sure adoption is happening in small steps in a lot of different places. That part, though, I just think has to happen on its own. I can't really do anything about that except wait. So let's talk about that down the road use case that I hinted at. We know that payments are going digital. Right now, cryptocurrency is the hot investment market, but the underlying problem that they were meant to solve is just faster, cheaper payments, not having to use the banks to do it. And they are ahead of that application curve too. Very few places allow you to buy anything with Bitcoin, for instance, and very few people would ever do it to begin with. That will change. More and more transactions will go digital, and the government is getting into this game as well. You've heard of CBDCs. Central bank digital currencies are not that far off. We'll probably see them working their way into more and more areas of the economy. My guess is that they'll start with things like entitlements, maybe tax payments, and then they'll work out from there. I don't have to tell anyone this, but a really efficient way for the central government to know how much you make, how much you spend, and what you spend it on would be to have a fully embedded CBDC. Again, that's central bank digital currency, if you're not familiar with the acronym. And a change like that kind of potential oversight, is going to trigger some amount of pushback. And an obvious pushback might come in the form of other transactional methods. That's going to include physical assets, maybe an alternative to cash. Now, some people out there think that junk silver could take that role, constitutional silver. I don't agree, or at least I don't think it's likely at all. I'm sure there are people who aren't going to like this, but I think it's just too much to assume that we could teach people why one dime is normal and another dime is special. I think something new might actually have a better shot. I don't know that the GoldBack model is any harder to imagine a use case for in that scenario than junk silver. So there is a potential where small dose gold could actually play a role in those off-grid transactions. It's still a little bit of a stretch to say that GoldBacks might fill that role, but stranger things have happened. There are places in the world that prefer potatoes as units of exchange. I won't try to convince anyone here one way or the other. I think these are interesting as a conversation starter. I like that they represent the idea of gold as money in just about the most literal way possible. Because of that, I think they're fun. Maybe they're worth picking some up now and then if you're similarly interested, but I don't think these are a stacking option. That should probably go without saying. You would not stack these for gold weight any more than you'd stack copper rounds or silver art pieces. I'd say they're a fun gift, maybe a good thing to have a few of yourself, and then beyond that, I'm still working out where they fit in. Let us know what you think. Are they just a novelty, or do they have a viable application either right now, today, or in the near future? I still like the idea of a warm weather casino with a swim up bar that lets me spend these directly. So let me know if you run into that particular situation, because I'm all in at that point. But in the meantime, let's just hit the like button if this was at all interesting, whether you're into the idea or not. You can downvote it too if you just hated the video. That's always an option. But either way, make sure that you're subscribed if you're into the topic of gold and precious metals. And if you're still here, thank you again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.